5939, to be considered as provided pursuant to subsection G(1)(a) of that section, and subject to the condition that the Foundation shall not secure funds from any institution of higher education, as defined in Section 101 of the Higher Education Act of 1965, 20 U.S.C. 1001, to fulfill the matching funds requirement under Section 7601, G(1)(b)(i) of the Agricultural Act of 2014, 7 U.S.C. 5939, G(1)(b)(i)(a), $45 million for each of fiscal years 2022 and 2023, and b. $150 million for each of fiscal years 2024 through 2026. 8. For biomass research, $5 million for fiscal year 2022, to carry out agriculture climate research on biomass, including pyrolysis and biochar, and related activities in accordance with Section 9008 of the Farm Security and Rural Investment Act of 2002, 7 U.S.C. 8108, and 9, to the Office of Urban Agriculture and Innovative Production, $62 million for each of fiscal years 2022 and 2023, to carry out activities in accordance with Section 222 of the Department of Agriculture Reorganization Act of 1994, 7 U.S.C. 6923, b. Covered institution defined in this section. The term covered institution means 1. An 1890 institution, as defined in Section 2 of the Agricultural Research, Extension, and Education Reform Act of 1998, 7 U.S.C. 7601. 2. A 1994 institution, as defined in Section 532 of the Equity in Educational Land-Grant Status Act of 1994, 7 U.S.C. 301 Note: Public Law 103-382. 3. An Alaska Native Serving Institution or Native Hawaiian Serving Institution eligible to receive grants under subsections A and B, respectively, of Section 1419B of the National Agricultural Research, Extension, and Teaching Policy Act of 1977, 7 U.S.C. 3156. 4. Hispanic Serving Agricultural Colleges and Universities and Hispanic Serving Institutions, as those terms are defined in Section 1404 of the National Agricultural Research, Extension, and Teaching Policy Act of 1977, 7 U.S.C. 3103. 5. An eligible institution, as defined in Section 1489 of the National Agricultural Research, Extension, and Teaching Policy Act of 1977, 7 U.S.C. 3361, relating to institutions of higher education in insular areas, and 6. The University of the District of Columbia established pursuant to the Act of July 2, 1862, commonly known as the First Morrill Act, 7 U.S.C. 301 et seq. Sec. 13002. Limitation. The funds made available under this subtitle are subject to the condition that the Secretary shall not 1. Enter into any agreement, a. that is for a term extending beyond September 30, 2031, and b. under which any payment could be outlaid or funds disbursed after September 30, 2031, and 2. Use any other funds available to the Secretary to satisfy obligations initially made under this subtitle. Subtitle E Miscellaneous Sec. 14001. Additional support for USDA Office the Inspector General. In addition to amounts otherwise made available, there is appropriated to the Office of the Inspector General of the Department of Agriculture for fiscal year 2022, out of any money in the Treasury not otherwise appropriated, $5 million to remain available until September 30, 2031, for audits, investigations, and other oversight activities of projects and activities carried out with funds made available to the Department of Agriculture under this title. Title II Committee on Education and Labor Subtitle A Education Matters Part 1 Elementary and Secondary Education Sec. 20001. Rebuild America's Schools Grant Program. A. In general. In addition to amounts otherwise available, there is appropriated to the Department of Education, 1. For fiscal year 2022, out of any money in the Treasury not otherwise appropriated, $1,270 million, to remain available until September 30, 2025, for carrying out this section, and 2. For each of fiscal years 2023 through 2024. Out of any money in the Treasury not otherwise appropriated, $39,643,650,000, to remain available until September 30, 2026, for carrying out this section. B. Rebuild America's Schools grants authorized from funds provided under paragraphs 1 and 2 of subsection A. The Secretary shall award grants in fiscal years 2022 through 2024 to state educational agencies in accordance with subsection C. C. Rebuild America's Schools grants. 1. Eligibility. A state educational agency is eligible for an allocation under this section, A, with respect to fiscal year 2022, for the purpose of public school facilities inventory efforts in accordance with paragraph 3A, and B, with respect to fiscal years 2023 and 2024. If such state educational agency has had approved by the Secretary a state facilities plan developed under paragraph 3A, 2I, for the purpose of improving public school facilities in accordance with paragraph 3B. 2. Allocations to states. The amount allocated to each state educational agency under paragraph 1 shall be in the same proportion as the amounts distributed to the state under Part A of Title I of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965, 20 U.S.C. $63.11 in the most recent fiscal year, relative to the total amount received under such part by all other states receiving an allocation under this section in such fiscal year. 3. State uses of funds. A state educational agency that receives an allocation under paragraph 1A, with respect to fiscal year 2022, shall use not less than 80% of such allocation to award subgrants to local educational agencies, including public charter schools that are local educational agencies in the state, in proportion to the amount of funds such local educational agencies and charter schools received under Part A of Title I of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965, 20 U.S.C. $63.11, in the most recent fiscal year, to support each such local educational agency in I. The development and publication of a local facilities master plan to address the health, safety, education equity, enrollment diversity, environmental sustainability, and climate resiliency of the public school facilities operated by such agency, and 2. The collection and submission of data to the state educational agency to support implementation of the state school facilities database. And 2. Not more than 20% of such allocation to I. Develop a state facilities plan that details a. How the state will use grant funds received under this section and state funds to make improvements to public school facilities of eligible local educational agencies to address disparities in both the financing and expenditures of school facilities capital outlay projects and in the conditions of public SCA. All facilities between eligible local educational agencies and other local educational agencies in the state. BB. How the state will develop a competitive process to provide subgrants to eligible local educational agencies, including the state's criteria for subgrant eligibility. And CC. How the state will, in carrying out the competitive process for subgrants described in item BB, take into consideration the impact that such subgrants may have on increasing student diversity and decreasing racial and socioeconomic isolation of students attending public elementary or secondary schools improved by such subgrants. Two, develop and operate, directly or through grants or contracts, the state school facilities database. And 3. Provide technical assistance to local educational agencies in carrying out activities described in Clause I, and supports related to the requirements of paragraph 4 for eligible local educational agencies. And B. With respect to each of fiscal years 2023 and 2024, shall I use not less than 90% of such allocation to award subgrants on a competitive basis to eligible local educational agencies with approved applications described in paragraph 4A, and 2. Use not more than 10% of